Ever wonder why you can be absolutely laser-focused on a complex project one day, but then completely fail to resist endlessly scrolling on your phone the next? Well, let's dive right into this explainer and explore the fascinating biological machinery that actually drives your achievements, your habits, and your focus. We're going to look directly under the hood at the underlying mechanics of what makes you tick, the literal physical hardware inside your head. To guide our journey, we've got a quick anatomy tour of your brain mapped out. We're going to break down 4 specific areas: your highly plastic brain, dopamine and addiction, wiring, success, and memory, and finally, the CEO of your brain. Let's get right into it. All right, starting off with part 1, your highly plastic brain, the foundation of change. We really need to start here to establish one incredible fact. Your brain's physical structure is not fixed. It is highly, highly malleable. Okay, so neuroplasticity. It's a big word, but understanding it is absolutely crucial. It basically means that everything you do and everything you consume physically rewires your neural pathways. Your brain is a living, experience-incorporating organ. Think of it like a freshly snowed over hill. The first time you take a sled down, right, the path is rough, it's unpredictable. But if you take that exact same path every single day, whether you're practicing a new language or just mindlessly swiping on social media, you carve a deep, fast, effortless groove right into the snow. You are actively carving new physical pathways inside your head all the time. Which brings us to this empowering quote from Dr. Daniel Eman. "You are not stuck with the brain you have. You can make it better." This really sets the tone for our whole explainer because it proves you possess the active ability to reshape your cognitive future. After reviewing literally hundreds of thousands of brain scans, the medical consensus is super clear. Whether you're dealing with trauma or just trying to break a few bad habits, your hardware can absolutely be healed and optimized. And what's truly fascinating here is the specific biology at play. So your hippocampus, that's the memory center shaped kind of like a little seahorse, generates hundreds of new stem cells daily, 700 of them to be exact. Think of them as 700 baby seahorses born every single day. And their daily habits, what you eat, how you move, what you focus your attention on, will either nourish these new cells and integrate them into your brain's network or completely destroy them. You are biologically rebuilding yourself on a daily basis. Now, looking at this timeline of our biological trajectory, those first 25 years are this massive window where vital myelination solidifies your neural pathways. Myelination is literally like wrapping a layer of insulation around your brain cells, which makes the electrical signals travel up to 100 times faster. During early childhood and right up to age 25, this window for learning is just wide open. But after your 25th birthday, your brain shifts into cognitive maintenance. It gets a little more set in its ways, which makes it harder, though definitely not impossible, to rewire. So, knowing that our brains are physically wired by our daily habits, let's look at the actual engine driving those habits. Part 2. Dopamine, motivation, and addiction. Right at the center of this engine is a region called the nucleus accumbens. And the crazy thing here is that the exact same neural circuitry that motivates a wild animal to hunt for food is what drives incredible human ambition. But it's also the exact same circuit that gets hijacked by modern vulnerabilities. Whether you're deeply motivated to climb Mount Everest, trying to land a rocket on the moon, or just really, really compelled to eat a donut and check your phone notifications, the baseline hardware firing in your brain is basically the same. Your brain doesn't inherently distinguish between a noble, lifelong goal and a cheap digital thrill. It just blindly follows the dopamine. Which naturally brings us to a huge question. If we have such an incredibly powerful motivational engine, why does our willpower completely cave when faced with modern technology? Why can we tell ourselves, okay, no more scrolling tonight, and yet, boom, 5 minutes later, we're staring right back at a screen? The answer is that social media algorithms neutrally operate on the exact same intermittent reinforcement schedules as Las Vegas slot machines. You swipe down to refresh, and occasionally you get a highly stimulating reward. And this just exhausts your pleasure centers. It's a highly engineered overstimulation. So when you feel like you just don't have any willpower, you're actually fighting a biochemical numbing effect. Because your nucleus accumbens is so overstimulated, your baseline dopamine actually drops. That means you literally have to consume more junk and scroll for longer and longer periods just to feel a baseline level of normal. Shifting gears from those basic, primitive drives to the mechanics of elite achievement, let's take a look at the software of the brain in Part 3, Wiring Success in Memory. Every single time you practice a skill or visualize an outcome, you're forging what's called a memory engram. This is a physical map of connected brain cells that will reactivate completely automatically when you need it. Think back to when you first learned to tie your shoes, right? It took massive, deliberate concentration. But now, you do it without thinking at all. That is a memory engram in action. It's how explicit, difficult, clunky thoughts eventually become effortless muscle memory. Your brain essentially drafts a permanent shortcut. And elite athletes use the software to their advantage in some beautifully contrasting ways. Take Michael Jordan and Michael Phelps. Jordan visualized the perfect procedural execution. He'd map out the flawless shot in his motor cortex over and over again until he built perfect muscle memory in his mind. Phelps, on the other hand, he intentionally engaged his prefrontal cortex to map out worst-case scenarios. He'd visualize his swimming goggles filling up with water or snapping entirely during an Olympic race. Because he pre-programmed his brain to handle absolute emergencies, when disaster actually struck in the pool, his brain didn't panic. It just automatically executed the pre-programmed solution. Taking a slightly darker but honestly equally fascinating approach, historical figures like Napoleon intentionally activated their amygdala's fear center to calculate survival strategies. Before a battle, Napoleon would reportedly visualize dozens of ways he could die or lose the fight. By visualizing every conceivable failure, he completely eliminated surprises. He mapped the danger to engineer the safety. Okay, so now that we understand the engine of motivation and the software of memory, we arrive at the system that manages the whole shebang. Part 4, the CEO of your brain. Meet your prefrontal cortex. This acts as the literal CEO of your life, giving you the top-down executive control you need to conquer impulsive digital habits and manage anxiety. It is proportionately largest in humans compared to any other animal. When your nucleus accumbens is screaming for just one more dopamine hit from an app, your prefrontal cortex is the CEO that steps in and says, no, we have an exam to study for. It manages delayed gratification, logic, and constantly overrides that primitive reactive amygdala. But here's the catch. Remember that timeline we looked at earlier? This COA region isn't fully insulated with that highly conductive myelin until around your 25th birthday, which perfectly explains why teenagers and young adults can sometimes struggle so heavily with impulse control and long-term planning, right? Their brain's executive board is quite literally still under construction. Now, when you face a difficult decision or a looming deadline, moving from the vague fear generated by your amygdala to specific logical planning instantly engages this prefrontal cortex. If you're stressed about a project, your primitive amygdala is just sounding a vague, paralyzing alarm. Danger! But the moment you sit down and write a specific step-by-step plan, you force the CEO into the driver's seat. And because the primitive brain finally understands the chain of causality, it just kind of sighs in relief and immediately calms down. So, to actually strengthen your willpower and activate that CEO, you've got to treat your prefrontal cortex exactly like a muscle. You can't just passively hope you're going to have better focus tomorrow. You have to actively train the CEO by doing hard things, intentionally delaying gratification, learning a new language or instrument. And crucially, this is a big one, letting your mind wander without the constant friction of a digital screen. You literally have to exercise the physical tissue of your prefrontal cortex through deliberate, challenging actions. Which brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. Knowing how highly plastic your brain truly is, who is actually in charge of your wiring? Are you actively wiring your brain for success, or are you just letting modern algorithms wire it for you? Your brain will physically adapt to whatever you feed it. Just make sure you are the one choosing the menu.